Wait, are we live? We be live!
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Oh, wait, I need to bring up the show. So I have this. So we're going to answer your questions. So post your questions in live chat. Sus, which mic you have on? Because I think you don't have a bad mic on.
Oh,
I'm
give
not
me a
sure.
second. Sorry.
She's going to sound like NPR very soon.
Is this better?
Yes, so much better. But your audio is
Sorry.
low. Say something.
Hello.
Edit mic setting. Here, I'm going to increase. Actually, can you touch the mic? Touch the mic because I want to see if you could. That is the correct mic. I'm just going to manually increase your audio here. Wait, you muted yourself. I can't increase your audio when you mute yourself. All right, there. All right, guys, tell us how the audio is. How's our audio? Everything good?
Hopefully you can hear me now.
Oh. Audio and visual is good music, I say. Okay, guys, so post your questions in. Yeah, your audio is great, Susanna. Post your questions in live chat. However, before we answer live chat questions, I see some really good questions in the live chat. We want to do two things before we do that. First, we want to share with you some videos that you might have not seen in other places with you here.
Yes, this is going to be good this week.
Today is going to be interesting. And then we're going to answer Patreon questions, right? And again, if you're not a patron, you could become a patron on Patreon, link in the description. And one of the benefits, we have so many perks for our patrons, which includes our blasphemous art. But one of them is that you get to ask your questions ahead of time. And that way, if you're not here live with us, your questions will be read and answered. And also, your questions get priority. Anyways, let's get to. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if there's any, I know for Susanna, it might come up a little bit choppy, but let me know in the live chat if it's coming up choppy. So the video that I'm going to share with, the video I'm going to share with you guys, it's about Ebrahim Raisi's new cabinet, the new ministers that have just been accepted in Iran's parliament, as they call it, Majlis. So for people who might not be aware, Iran has a new president. This president, his name is Raisi. He's
horrible.
He's horrible. He's extreme. Calling him conservative is just like an understatement. He was on the Death Council, responsible for one of the genocides in our lifetime that doesn't get the attention that it deserves. Anyways, this new president has picked his ministers, and the ministers were submitted to the parliament or Majlis in Iran for approval, and apparently all but one have been accepted by the parliament. And we just want to just look at some of these ministers, okay? Just look at what's happening. Just look at Iran. I know everyone is right now talking about Afghanistan, but let's just look at what's happening in Iran right now. I know some of the questions are about Afghanistan. Yeah, just in case you forgot. All right. Let me know it's choppy. So I'm gonna start with Iran's newly approved foreign minister. Okay, so there are two things about this guy that I want to show you guys. All right. Let me know if this is choppy, okay? So his name is Abdullahian, Hossein Amir Abdullahian, okay? So this is a guy that is replacing Javad Zarif, which was a previous minister. Javad Zarif was supposedly a reformer, and this guy is like a hardliner, but hardliner doesn't cut it. Like this guy is like a hardliner compared to your average hardliner. Is weird. Okay, hold on. So the commentator said that this person looks nothing like a foreign minister. Like seems
ترور سردار سلیمانی و ابو مهدی المهندس دو خطا کردن. خطای اولشون این بود که خودروی سردار سلیمانی رو هدف قرار دادن. خطای دومشون این بود که سردار سلیمانی و همراهانش.
Okay, so he's saying this is a speech before, this is the new foreign minister of Iran. So here he's saying that the Americans, when they bombed Soleimani, right? I hope people know who Soleimani is. Was like this head of the Quds force, which is the branch of Iran's IRGC. Bad guy, caused a lot of harm in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan, and United States bombed him and killed him under Trump's administration. he's saying now, this new foreign minister of Iran over here in this video, he's saying they made two mistakes. Americans made two mistakes. One, they bombed Soleimani, and two, they bombed Soleimani's car. His car. Okay? All right? So the Americans have committed two crimes here, okay?
هدف قرار دادن. انتقام خودروی سردار سلیمانی رو جمهوری اسلامی ایران با پرتاب 13 موشک بالستیک نقطه زن به پایگاه استراتژیک عین‌الاسد داد. اما اون فقط
So he says that Iran has so far responded, they took revenge for Qasem Soleimani's car by throwing 13 missiles at the Ain-al-Assad military base in Iraq. So I don't know if people remember when Trump administration killed Soleimani, Iran's government retaliated with 13 missiles, and in the American base in Iraq, nobody died, but that was supposed to be the revenge attack. And this guy is saying, guys, no, that was not the revenge attack for Soleimani himself. That was the revenge attack for his car. You haven't seen our response yet for killing Soleimani. You haven't seen our revenge on that yet. That was just our revenge. You basically, how dare you take it? Like that was a crime by itself, right? So
انتقام خودروی منهدم شده سردار سلیمانی بود. انتقام خون سردار سلیمانی بزرگتر از اون هست. امریکا
He's like just you wait. The revenge for his blood is going to be much bigger. Much bigger.
تا خودشون میدونن. امریکایی‌ها امروز در کاخ سفید دارن میلرزن.
Oh, I said and this is something the Americans know. This is why Americans are shivering. In the White House, all Americans in the White House, they're like in fear because they know Iranians are when they get the revenge for Soleimani himself, right?
Wait,
Julie, you need to be afraid. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I say what I said on the pre-show?
Oh yeah, go on.
So Armin was telling me about this, and I was like, I started cracking up because I was just thinking of like how much of a paper tiger he is. Like the posturing is insane. It's like, oh yeah, the reason why our response has been so objectively weak and feeble, and me even using this kind of phrase about the car as an admittance of that, and it's because we're holding back. It's because it was a lesser target. Just wait and see. Just you wait and see.
All right. But okay, this second part you haven't seen yet. I haven't shown you this part, okay?
Oh no.
So we're going to stay with the same minister. Here's something else he said, okay?
عبداللهیان همچنین به نظر میرسد دچار توهماتی است که بسیار مورد پسند رهبر جمهوری اسلامی و هواداران اوست.
من آخرین سفری که به دمشق داشتم جمعی از دوستان سردار سلیمانی که جزو مستشاران نظام
He says in my latest trip to Damascus, right? Or Damascus in English, in Syria, he met with some military personnel and friends of Soleimani.
هستند و هنوز می‌دونید در سوریه جنگ علیه تروریسم در بعضی از مناطق و هنوز می‌دونید در جمعی از دوستان سردار سلیمانی که جزو مستشاران نظامی هستند و هنوز می‌دونید در سوریه جنگ علیه تروریسم در بعضی از مناطق ادامه داره.
It's like and you must know that in Syria there are some places where people are still fighting radical groups. The T word, he's used the T word. I'm not going to use it here on YouTube.
اینا میگفتن که رابطه روحی ما با سردار بگونه است. گاهی اوقات عملیاتی داریم با همکاری نیروهای مسلح سوریه و اینا که یه منطقه‌ای رو بریم آزاد بکنیم که در اختیار
He says the soldiers there say that our relationship with Soleimani is so that right now when we're cooperating with the Syrian regime and we're about to attack a place. So this is after Soleimani is dead, by the way. Soleimani is dead, okay?
تروریست‌ها هنوز در مثلا شرق فرات در سوریه شب سردار رو تو خواب می‌بینیم.
It's like when we're sleeping at night, Soleimani visits us during our sleep. Guys, this is the current
Excuse me?
minister. Yeah. Guys, again, let me remind you, this is the foreign minister of Iran. And he's saying Soleimani, who happens to be dead, visits Iranian proxy soldiers before an attack while they're sleeping.
روی نقشه به ما میگه این تصویری که
And he comes and shows them on the map where the enemy soldiers are.
کشیدید از اینجا برید به نتیجه نمیرسید.
Like he tells the soldiers, like if you go this way, you're not going to get the results. If you go this other way, you're going to get the results.
این مسیر رو باید برید طی کنید و ما فردا با اون نقشه میریم. این دیگه خیلی باید اون
And it's like, and that's how they come up with their strategies. They change their plans according to the dreams that they have with Soleimani showing up.
The visions of Soleimani.
Guys, this is the foreign minister of Iran, okay? The foreign minister of Iran thinks like Iranian proxy groups in Syria are making strategic decisions based on and again, this guy is suggesting that the dreams are real. Like that's actually Soleimani's ghost showing up and giving them strategic advantage over their enemy on a map while they're sleeping. Yeah, so this is amazing. There are many other examples.
What I said before the show, which is, how does this country run?
Well, I think he's going to run this.
So wouldn't Soleimani like coming down and delivering messages from people, like, isn't that shirk? Like, that's definitely innovation.
These are Shias. These are Shias. What are you talking about? Shirk is all they do. Where have you been?
But like, even among the Shias, aren't there qualifications for who has to do that? Like, at least with, like, it's like Ahl Bayt, but like, Soleimani's just, I guess, for them a Shaheed. Like,
Ahmadinejad said that Imam Mehdi showed up to him at the UN and the United Nations when he was giving a speech at the United Nations. God. He said that Mehdi appeared to him right there and then. So this is not new. Okay, just one more before we go to the question. Sorry, this is too good. Okay. So this is Rostam Qasemi right down here. You could just see his head popping up. This is him just being approved for his position at Rais's cabinet, and now he's a minister. So here's what happened, okay? So he's reading his note. He's showing everybody his notes, and he says, "I have already my notes prepared. I have already my commands prepared for what to do on day one as my role as the minister of oil. And these are my plans. And this is what I'm going to do. And blah 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 blah." And everybody in the crowd is yelling at him, "You haven't been approved for minister of oil. You're the minister of roads and city building." And he keeps continuing, like, as the minister of oil, will I do and this and this and this. And people are like laughing and like, he doesn't know what minister he is. He doesn't know what his guys. He doesn't, like, this is the minister of Iran. He's been approved to be a minister, and he thinks he's the minister of oil, but he's actually the minister of road and city building. Okay. Like my presence as the minister of oil, and people are like, what? Like, look at him. This is Ghalibaf before him is like laughing. And he's like looking like he doesn't know why people are laughing. And people are keep telling him, like, what are you talking about? You're not the minister of oil. Like, everybody knows, but he apparently doesn't know. Everybody else knows, but he doesn't know. This is just a clown show. There's so many more examples, but I do want to get to the questions, so I'm not going to continue.
What about Rostami? Oh my god.
Rostami, that was Rostami. Yeah. No, but there are more examples.
I was thinking of the
that guy. Oh my god, that is also very good. Should I show that?
What's his name? I always get it confused. It's R something.
Rezai. Oh
yeah, so for those who don't know, this is a guy who ran in the presidential election. He looks like imagine your stereotype of what a guy who runs the IRGC is, and it's literally him.
Okay, so this guy, he's now he didn't get a ministry position under Raisi's regime. He got like Ebrahim Raisi's first economic advisor or something, right? So this is now this guy is the Iran's president's economic advisor. And we have this recording of him here. Let me just show it really quickly because Suzy, you're right. This is actually really juicy.
به فکر حمله نظامی باشن، مطمئن باشن ما حداقل هم هفته اول 1000 نفر آمریکایی رو اسیر میگیریم که اون موقع برای آزاد کردن هر کدومشون با چند میلیارد دلار بدن و البته خب خیلی از مشکلات اقتصادی ما ممکنه حل بشه. اما توصیه می‌کنیم.
So this guy, which is the economic advisor of the president of Iran right now, thinks that it right now is saying, this is on recording, that if they just kidnap 1,000 Americans, okay, and just ask United States for a couple of, how many dollars? $1 million for each one? Oh no, billion actually. He asked if we just ask for a couple of $1 billion for each American that we kidnap, that will just solve Iran's economy. So this is now the economic advisor.
That was his platform when he ran during the presidential election.
Yeah. Guys,
I remember watching that for the first time during the debates, and I was like, "You're just saying that out loud now?" Like, what the?
Well, what happened? No, but what happened? People are saying, "Wow, that's hot."
Imagine a presidential candidate for the United States being like, our plan is that we are going to hold citizens of a foreign country hostage. That's insanity.
Right. But no, what happened during the presidential debate was not that he came out and said this himself. His competing candidate was like, guys, this is the guy that said that. Like, somebody was trying to embarrass him, but like his competitor was trying to embarrass him, like guys, Rezai, this is the guy that was his fix for the economy, and Rezai doubled down, like, yeah, of course that's my fix for the economy. What do you think?
He's like, I'm a soldier. I think like a soldier.
Oh yes, that's what he said. Like, I have a soldier's mind.
I'm like, Jesus Christ. That explains why your economic platform is shit.
There's so many memes coming on Twitter about this. People are like, okay, great, we're in good hands. Iran's going to be good now. Like, people, and some people are like, what have we done to deserve this? It's amazing.
It's like a clown cabinet. Like,
oh my god. Okay, so let's go to Patreon questions really quick, and then we could.
Yes.
So we have the first Patreon question from Erkin. And
yes, I'm going to put it in the live chat.
Oh, you're going to do it? Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
Wow.
So
there you go.
Erkin is asking, why is state atheism unsuccessful? This is a good question, Erkin.
Easy.
There are a lot of different aspects to this, but my simple answer is that state atheism is unsuccessful because you're not actually teaching people how to think for themselves. Okay? I think that's one of the most important aspects of like a flourishing society. And enforcing state atheism, well, I think atheism is like a better, well, it's a lack of belief. Worldview, I'll say. That if you just enforce that, you're not actually teaching people to question and interrogate what is actually the best ways to go about living your life, what is, or why we believe the things that we believe. It's just enforced. It's like forced secularism. It's not something I support at all. I didn't explain that as well as I wanted to.
Well, actually, I thought that was pretty good. That was in addition to what I wanted to say, which is something I didn't think about. I thought it was good. I was going to add to that is, well, because it violates secularism, right? We believe in secularism. We believe that the government shouldn't be involved in what would be accurately described as thought policing, right? This is state atheism. I mean, there's many definitions of what state atheism is, but all of them include thought policing. All of them include the government getting involved in telling people, this is what you believe, this is what you practice, this is what you do in your personal life, and this is what is not acceptable, okay? Even in a vacuum, that is wrong, because like that's total authoritarianism. That's like tyrannical. Like, what the hell? Like, the government's role is to basically provide an environment where people are not physically being harmed, right? And provide some protection for people. And other than that, like, and provide some services where private entities are not capable to provide. And other than that, it's just that get the hell out. Like, there's no government, any good government has no business in getting involved in people's personal lives and telling them what is acceptable thought and what is not acceptable thought. It should just create an environment, a healthy environment for these ideas to be able to compete with each other, and hopefully the best ones will win, right? That's what the role of the government is, for nobody to be able to impose their ideas on other people, but they are able to market and promote their ideas and invite other people, right? And not only the government shouldn't impose any ideas on anybody, it should also create an environment where other people can't impose their ideas by force on anybody else, right? That's the role of the government, right? But beyond this, just in a vacuum, if you look at it, that's already problematic for the government to have a role like that. But even beyond that, the problems are going to become a lot worse, because a government that has that level of authority to be able to meddle in people's personal lives in that level is probably a government that has other capabilities. Like, let's say, for example, you're an atheist in a state atheist government. You're like, well, yeah, this is bad for other people and I don't like it, but at least I'm an atheist and this is good. No, this is not good for you either. A government,
those conditions even existing is it's not good at all.
Yeah, like a government that can get religious people not to practice religion privately, right? It's a government that is going to also have the authority to do things to you as an atheist that you should not like, or anybody, right? Like, even if you're not a humanist who care for other humans just for the sake of the fact that they're humans and you should care for them and you shouldn't want anything to be imposed on them, even if you're like a selfish person that only cares about you, as an atheist, this is a government that has such level of authoritarianism that your liberties are not going to be respected. Like, if this is the government that you're living under, right? So even for selfish reasons, you shouldn't be like, no government should have this much power, right? So what should be, so if you want to tackle religion, the things that Susanna mentioned are the right way to do it, not by forcing atheism on anybody, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think we answered that pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the second patron question is from Music Guy, who was asking, do you think an ISIS-K attack, and I'm saying it spelled out because of the overlords, the YouTube algorithm. Do you think an ISIS-K attack was imminent, and do you agree with this evacuation? ISIS-K is the local affiliate.
Oh, okay. Just say ISIS, because people I don't know that. Local.
No, but apparently it's very distinguished. We'll get into that. Okay, let me start. Do you think it was imminent? Do you agree with this evacuation and how it's being dealt with? No, I don't agree with this evacuation and how it's being dealt with. We're only beginning to see how bad it's going to get. The consequences of things going down the way it did, we're going to be hearing about this for months. There's still a lot of American citizens who are there. There are still a lot of citizens of other foreign countries who are there. The UK and Australian mission has already ended. The American mission is basically effectively done. Definitely less than like 36 hours, but more like 24 at this point. But it's effectively over already, especially because of the attacks that happened today or in the previous 24 hours. But do I think an attack was imminent? Yes, I do. There was a lot of intelligence about this. And that's part of why, Biden or the administration and advisors were so insistent about the August 31st deadline, or even before then. This is partly because when so many of those prisons were broken into, and there's so many jailbreaks. Those jailbreaks weren't just Taliban members; it was also ISIS members. And I know that Trump released a couple thousand people, but I could be wrong on that, and I don't actually know like how what groups that was comprised of. But
so I want to mention a few things. So Well, I mean, did we know it was somewhat imminent because the intelligence agency said that this is about to happen, and they were right? So there's that. And that's why American government was telling Americans not to show up at the airport, right?
Mhm.
Because they were like, and this seemed like such a obvious target for ISIS as well, right? Because this was such as like the area outside of the airport, like you get to the airport and then there's security by the Taliban and then there's security from other countries. But right before the airport, you have the crowd gathering and there's no security before that. I mean, you can't find a softer target than that, right? So it was like ISIS is like you're dangling something in front of ISIS. And also remember that ISIS is trying to play this game right from their own strategic purposes, right? They are, the Taliban and ISIS have this, depending on the Taliban, sometimes they're fighting with each other and sometimes they're working with each other, right? From one Taliban to another Taliban, from one place to another place, you have examples of the Taliban working with ISIS, and you have examples of Taliban attacking the ISIS, right? And when it comes to attacking ISIS, the Taliban is somewhat better at it at compared to foreign organization because they know who's who and who's related to who, and you can't just like switch flags and think that you're not going to be remembered. Like people know each other, but they're a lot better. So the ISIS is actually afraid of the Taliban, right? So. And the Taliban right now, it's under a lot of pressure to show some degree of stability, right? That's what the Taliban wants to demonstrate to the world. And ISIS knows that means that the Taliban is going to crack down on ISIS to some extent, right? And the ISIS is like, we have to like go on the down low for now, like not operate that much right now. So not to anger the Taliban too much, because the ISIS understands that the Taliban is trying to demonstrate stability, and if the ISIS goes against that and they anger the Taliban, ISIS's presence in Afghanistan will be challenged. Like it would be harder for ISIS to maintain operations in Afghanistan if the Taliban gets too pissed at them. However, this was too good of a target for ISIS to pass it. So this was like ISIS was doing like a cost benefit analysis on this. So like we don't want the anger of Taliban right now, but we have like showing Americans like causing chaos, like increasing our brand.
They're not going to have another opportunity like this again.
To make Americans look weak and pathetic, and like this is going to be such. Like, and also Taliban is enjoying so much branding power right now, and ISIS is like, their branding is down the toilet, so they really need like to show the other radicals that they're relevant. And this was such an important, and it might increase. We don't know. Okay. So the second part, do you agree with the evacuation, how it's being dealt with? Honestly, like, I think we should keep criticizing. Like, first of all, me and Susie are in favor of the evacuation happening, right? We are like both agree that this needed to be done, okay? And I also think it's very fair to keep criticizing the way the evacuation has been planned as being done. But at the same time, it's hard to imagine that it wouldn't have been chaotic. Like the more you look into what's happening, the more it seems like anybody who did this in any way, it would have been bound to be a disaster. Okay. It would have been maybe like if it was under Trump, it would be more chaotic, and if it was under, I don't know, someone else, like maybe Obama, it would be less. We don't know, right? This might be like, you can't like keep comparing how it would be if we did this. Like, this is not, we don't have a lab to keep testing how chaotic it would be if we'd done this, if we'd done that, if we'd done this, right? Even the most common advice that people give, like, look, this could have been planned way more ahead of time over a longer period of time. some people argue that might have actually been more chaotic, right? Because as soon as this plan would have been taking place, all of this chaos would have started. So some people argue that actually if you had dragged it out, like let's say like this is like a 2-week process. Some people are saying if this was like a 2-month process, you would have 2 months worth of chaos. Because as the moment you start the signaling of the pulling out, that's when the chaos would have started. And if you had dragged this over a longer period of time, you would have invited more war, more internal chaos. So some people are saying you can't necessarily know that alternative would have been better. Like one thing that seems to be guaranteed is that a lot of people are like saying, like, look at the mess that we're dealing with. This shows that we shouldn't have left. Some people are saying, like, given 20 years of Americans being there and 20 years and so many spending money, like, see, if the resistance was a little bit, but it failed, maybe then you could have argued that maybe they could have been doing something that where the resistance would have been stronger and things would have been easier and things would have been less chaotic or something like that, right? Or there would be more power sharing. But the speed at which everything fell and the speed at which the chaos increased, right, kind of suggests that nothing would have been able to prevent this. Like if you decided to do this 5 years ago, now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or if you decided to do this over a period of 2 weeks or 2 months, or if you like, it seemed like it was just like something that as soon as you remove the resistance, like everything would have fallen apart and it would have been chaos. Like there's nothing to show that there was a non-chaotic way out of this, right? So, and maybe there are things that we could say like, oh, this could have been done better. But again, we don't have a lab to show that if we had done this, things would have been better. Like it's easy for us to just sit by like, why did you do this and not do this? It's not that easy. Like there's so much things that are involved in this. There's so many complications that are involved in this. And everybody who's making suggestions, they don't know if we did what they are suggesting we did, that things wouldn't have been worse. Like the most common advice is like, you should have planned this way ahead of time and prepared this. Like, but if you had planned this way ahead of time, then the chaos would have started way ahead of time, and it would have dragged on much longer. So again, I'm not saying that. By the way, I'm not saying this would have happened. I'm saying potentially, right? So you don't know. But go on.
Didn't the previous Afghan government like discourage the U.S. from trying to implement and do too much advanced evacuation because they were trying to maintain like a look of legitimacy? Like, we got this, we're going to be fine. Like, they also don't want to, I think of it like panic buying, like they don't want to see people suddenly rushing towards something. And then it's just like, I don't know, us humans, we have like this kind of little mob spark where we just go like, like that kind of mass panic. Deborah is saying leaving all the equipment behind the way they did was extremely irresponsible, though. Well, I actually remember the troops destroying a lot of stuff at Bagram Air Base, for example, before they departed. I can't remember what kind of infrastructure or equipment they destroyed, but I mean, that's one indicator that they already knew which way this was going to go, because people were, including myself, were criticizing at the time, like, well, the Afghan government can make use of that. Well, the arms that we did leave behind for them quickly ended up in the hands of other people.
Actually, that's a very good point, because Deborah, the equipment was left behind. They weren't left behind. They were given to the Afghan army. It was the Afghan army who left them behind for the Taliban. I also want to tell people that nobody saw this fast of a takeover by the Taliban. Okay, people are like, oh my God, you should have seen this coming. Who saw this? Nobody saw this coming. Like, people predicted that the Taliban would take over. Like almost everybody predicted that, right? But
within
not at the
year
speed that it happened. Yeah, but at first within a year, then said 6 months. They were like, okay, maybe less than 6 months, and then people were like, oh, sorry, less than a week. But the thing is that after it happened, people were like, oh yeah, this would have happened. Like, show me the people who predicted this. Like, this was an unpredictable event, right? So now people, after it happened, with the power of hindsight, they're like, oh, they should have seen this coming. Like, sure, congratulate yourself for acting like you would have predicted something after it happened. Like, oh, they should have seen this coming, right? And like, no, nobody saw this coming. It was unpredictable. So this speed was caught everybody off guard. Like, there were no analysts that were saying like, yeah, Taliban is going to take over in a week. People with much higher level access to information and with much more expertise than anybody didn't see this coming. So there's that, right? Okay, Deborah, if you want to criticize the U.S. government regarding something with military equipment, what you actually should be criticizing them for is equipping the Afghan military with equipment that will constantly require U.S. support. Like, and this is more of a criticism of Americans' weapon industry, because for them, what matters is a constant. You know how you used to buy a printer, and the printer was not how the printing company makes money, is selling you the ink. Is how they make your money, right? That's how military industry. So like sometimes they actually even are losing money on selling you the printer, but now you're hooked to them. Now you have to buy expensive ink for them. Like that's how it used to work, and you constantly to maintain it, and that's how they make a lot of their money. Okay, some printers, that's how the money was made. The military industry also works like that, right? It's not just the helicopters that they're selling you. It's like, you can't operate this without us, can you? Right? Like, you're gonna constantly need us for maintaining it and operating it, and that's how they now you're basically subscribed to this thing that you can't, if you cancel, now these expensive stuff that you bought is just useless now, right? So that's how they get you into this membership. It's like a membership. It's like a subscription, right? That you didn't read the terms of agreement into.
Well, and the
that's
reliance on air forces as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and the Taliban doesn't need any of that, right? So, it's just that the money-making nature of the weapon industry is like a very destructive force. Anyways, I think that was the Patreon questions. We should do the
yes, it was. Question. This person Vasudev had like a very good question at the beginning of the stream, but because of StreamYard, when I scroll up, I can't see it. So if you're still watching, please ask your question again.
Yeah, can you repost it? I see it though on my phone. I can read it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to read it.
Guys, and if you have a question, make sure to tag at Atheist Republic. Go ahead.
All right. Vasu is asking, why is Apostate Prophet allowing his channel to become a safe haven for Hindu nationalists? What? And other kinds of extremists? His audience is reflecting the very ideas they oppose. It's terribly upsetting, and I didn't see it coming. It's a mix of bag of white I'm not gonna read that. Hindu nationalists and all other kinds of people who share Islamophobia. I don't like Islam, but come on, Neil. Laughing at the Afghanistan situation. Okay, I think I think that at some point that if you have been very clear about what you stand for, then you can't just hold the content creator that much responsible for their audience, right? I don't think that you can completely think like the content creator is not responsible for their audience at all. Like, the content creator is responsible for somewhat for their audience, but not after they have been very clear about what they stand for and what they oppose. At some point after that, I don't think it's fair for you to hold them responsible for that. Like I'm pretty sure there's some people watching us right now who are like absolute bigots, right? But we have been very clear about us being against all of that. Like, what else can we do, right? And at some point, maybe you don't also want to scare these people away, because maybe you can have an influence on them. Like, for example, Apostate Prophet himself has been very clear how much he has been against a lot of these Hindu nationalists and their views, and some other bad ideas that he's been like. Apostate Prophet has been defending Muslims' rights in China, right? That's pretty clear about, and he's been against, he's been very clear about what he stands for and what he doesn't. So if he is creating an environment where these people are attracted to, I'd rather it be a positive prophet rather than, I don't know, like maybe Yasmin Mohammed, who seems to actually be promoting their ideas and making excuses for them, right? So I rather
there's this one ex-Muslim figure that's really bad, but I don't even want to like say who it is because I don't want to give them any more attention. But like way worse than anyone else, like bad.
Right. No, I mean, we don't want, like, when you say a safe haven, like, what do you think? Like, you think these people, if they didn't, what do you mean by a safe haven? Like, you think like if they hadn't had Apostate Prophet's channel, they would just disappear, right? No, so I rather, if they want to find a place, if these people are getting their anti-Islam content, I rather them getting it from Apostate Prophet, who's responsible with how he is. Like he's not promoting any form of bigotry or anything like that. So I'd rather it be Apostate Prophet rather than these people finding some other radical crazy person who actually might keep and promoting the destructive ideas that they have, right? In fact, we need somebody like Apostate, because somebody, our channel, for example, doesn't attract Hindu nationalists or people like that because we just like crap on them way excessively all the time. So I think like Apostate Prophet's channel is a good intermediary. Like it's a giant channel where these people feel like, I didn't like what Apostate Prophet said there, but I'm going to stick around because it's just anti-Islam content is very juicy, right? So they might, and that's great because they might get some, it's somewhat a poke here and there, about some of their radical beliefs that they have. Like, for example, when Apostate Prophet came and defended us when all these Hindus were attacking us, a lot of these Hindu fans like left. Like, what do you want him? Like, he lost subscribers, he lost patrons over that. What do you want him to do? Like, he's being responsible for his content. What do you like? He doesn't have these views himself. This is a good channel as an alternative to other anti-Islam content creators who are who might be bigoted or promoting some other harmful ideas. I think I don't see a problem here. What do you think?
I agree for the most part. I think you also have to consider that Apostate Prophet is like literally the largest ex-Muslim YouTuber in the world. So he's going to automatically get more of that kind of attention than anyone else. I think he's made.
You got cut for a second for me. Say that again. Automatically.
I was just saying that he's the largest ex-Muslim YouTuber there is. So he's just going to get more of that proportionally.
Right.
He's made his opinion clear like many times. I have been following up with his content recently, so I can't like speak to if there's been like a different bent or like attitude recently. But I've always found him to be like very good at not demonizing like people. Sometimes when he like is typing out things like his little community posts or when he used to be on Twitter before he joined us in Twitter jail. Every now and then, sometimes I feel like he could say things that could be like a bit generalizing.
Yeah.
But I'm just I'm very picky towards that kind of thing. So I have incredibly.
I think I don't think we're being picky. I think our criticism,
I'm
like when he
speaking
makes
for myself.
Of, like, no, I think your criteria and my criteria are almost the same, and I think they're completely justified. The difference with Apostate Prophet is like those tweets and those comments that he makes that we criticize and we don't like. The difference is that Apostate Prophet, like when we tell him, he's not like when he gets that criticism, he like considers it. Like,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like sometimes he gets upset, but many times he's like, he considers alternative viewpoints. It's not like he's not a bigot. Okay, sometimes he says some things that is like overgeneralization, and my experience has been like if you tell him that, he could see why something was wrong, and he just thinks about it and maybe he comes up with a different way of saying it. You know what I mean? Like he reflects on his position and he's not afraid of changing it, which is very admirable. Even if I don't agree with a lot of his positions, the fact that he like considers it and changed it. I mean, I don't know if people understand that like a lot of us ex-Muslims, our family is Muslim, right? So, and we love our family. So,
well, you have an awesome relationship
like,
with your family. Not everyone does.
Yeah, but a lot of us, a lot of ex-Muslims do. But no, like what I want to say, like, is that it's kind of hard not to be sympathetic to. I don't want to excuse it, but sometimes you deal with so much crap that you're not careful with how you're saying what you're saying. Okay, and I get that, but I will still be critical of it.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. But here's Vasu's responses. I think that's fair response. I see some people taking crap about trans people and being racist here as well. Yep. And it makes sense. I'm glad to be part of this community. Yeah, we do. We try to, when we see it, we try to highlight it, and we crush them as soon as we see them, not by but just by highlighting them and telling them what they're wrong. And this is why, as our queen mentions, we don't attract anyone, since we attack everyone. This is why we don't grow, guys. As soon as we build a following, we see some problematic views in our following, and we start attacking it, and people are like, well, that's not what I signed up for, and they leave, and that's why we never grow. That's why I appreciate the people who are still here, because you guys are the only ones.
No, it's awesome. I mean, it does help us foster a community of people who are willing to be criticized and learn and grow. We try to make it cool to admit when you're wrong, and I think we've made a lot of progress with that. I mean, I do have to be honest in saying we don't call it out all the time, because usually it's a totally off topic thing that's happening on our live chat. And especially when we're doing the news, we have to we have to really stay focused.
Right.
So I can't call it out as much as I would always like, but we're lucky in having a couple of, if it's about the news, we'll talk about it, but we have a lot of awesome moderators who are good at talking to people and calling that stuff out.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes I'm like, what is going on over there?
Oh my god.
On any given day, there can be some people arguing about random Indian politics in our live chat any day of the week.
Yeah. No, for example, when you're talking about Afghanistan, there might be some comments there that are really bad, but not about Afghanistan. But then I see some guy coming out who was that ethno-nationalist
Pashtun ethno-nationalist.
There was a Pashtun supremacist in our live chat. Oh, that was about Afghanistan, right? And we were talking about Afghanistan. So then I went after that Pashtun supremacist guy, calling him out because it was relevant to our news. Yeah. Anyways, let's go to the next question. Guys,
okay.
The questions at the top we lost it, so you have to repost your questions, because StreamYard for some reason doesn't let us scroll all the way back up. So please repost your questions if we missed them.
Zakuro is saying, isn't it ironic that the Afghans who aided US/NATO most effectively were trained by the USSR, whilst the US/NATO trained Afghans were total buffoons? What does that tell us about US/NATO? Well, okay, here's an interesting criticism that I wanted to say earlier. So this is something I heard from Professor Christina Taft, something at George Washington University, and this is her field and this is her area of expertise. And she was saying that a mistake we kept making for 20 years is to train these forces on American weapons technology, which has been described as excessively technical, just way too difficult, whereas they had already had familiarity of Soviet technology. And so if we had aided them with Soviet technology, their ability to actually pick it up and gain mastery of it would have been a lot quicker probably, and been a lot more likely. And it just that was a massive mistake we made, obviously, because we want to try to fill that market with our own, weapon sales. So I think that's one aspect to it. honestly, this isn't something I'm very well informed about. I don't know how much it has to do with like US/NATO, whereas like there's so many issues that are already there. Like I know just like literacy is a big problem. So, you know, bringing a population up to speed on that to get them able to like use these tools that are already, you know, require such a high level of expertise already, is obviously a great difficulty. Armin, do you have thoughts on this?
Well, what I actually didn't know what any of this, so that was interesting. But what I do know, which I don't know if it's going to be relevant to this or not, is that when Afghan soldiers were being trained by USSR, that was the time that they were not just being trained in combat and military.
They were trained in Marxism.
Like they were being trained in Marxism. So this was actually at the time where Afghan was under the influence of both United States and USSR, and the Americans were training the children in the American way, and USSR was training the soldiers the Marxist way, and they were being like this. You know, this was a tactic by USSR because they knew that the Americans were training. You know, this was an ideological battle. Again, I keep telling people that one reason why America used to be more efficient at what they did when it comes to winning cold and warm battles was because they mixed their military battles with ideological battles. And now you can't just win these things just with military battles. So true. Right? Yeah, and that's why the reason why I wonder if that's an effect here is because ideological soldiers are more committed than soldiers that are just there to get paid, right? And these new soldiers who are not ideological soldiers, you know, what are they there to die for or to risk their lives for? Afghanistan as a concept is not necessarily something that, again, not all, but a lot of Afghans feel any loyalty to, you know, their tribe, their religion, you know, the Pashtun tribe or like that. Those are the things that are entities that people feel a sense of loyalty to. But Afghanistan as a concept doesn't even exist for a lot of people there, right? And again, not all, right? Especially when Afghanistan as an entity hasn't been treating them. Like, I'm not even blaming them, right? Like, if you're a soldier that hasn't been paid, that you see that your officers are constantly corrupt, like, what sense of loyalty do you feel to any of that? Like, it doesn't make any, like, you can't expect loyalty from a soldier like that, right? But I don't know if in these other soldiers who were trained much, you know, these are people that were trained under USSR. They have gone through so much. Like, they have seen Afghanistan go through and another thing, like, and they are fighting for might be fighting for different reasons that these new ghost soldiers are fighting for. Like, a lot of these soldiers didn't even exist. They were just ghost soldiers, and a lot of them were just there because there's no other way to make money in Afghanistan, right? Again, not all. There are some other soldiers that were like, no, I will die for Afghanistan, this is my country. Like, that example doesn't exist, but not to the same extent. One thing else people have to understand, that the destruction of Afghanistan originally didn't happen because of Islamism. It originally happened because of communism. True. Afghanistan was on such a beautiful path to prosperity, and what broke it was not Islamist. What broke it originally to such a, you know, if you go study the history of Afghanistan, you see how it seemed like there was a time in Afghanistan that everything was going in the right direction. Everything was getting better. It seemed like it was hard not to be optimistic about the future of Afghanistan before. And it actually kind of started because of the training of the soldiers by USS. Like, if you want to praise, you know, you think like all these soldiers seems to be better, and USSR seems to have been more efficient at the way they train the soldiers than the United States. These soldiers are the reason why Afghanistan is the way it is today, because the way that communism grew in Afghanistan was through these soldiers. And that was the curse. That was the original curse that broke Afghanistan.
Well, it was like a coup, and then a combination. A coup and communism.
Well, even before the coup, the economic, actually, you're right. No, it was a coup, but the economic, so guys, so first of all, the economic policies, destroyed, so much of how everything was operated in Afghanistan. Beyond just the war that the USSR caused. Okay?
This is why you don't run your country on theory.
Yes, this exactly. All right, guys, the war itself that your USSR brought to Afghanistan was astronomically more devastating than the war that you're saying that the United States brought to Afghanistan in all of the 20 years. The number of the people, both foreign and Afghani, who died in the past 20 years in Afghanistan is a drop in a sea compared to the war that the USSR brought to Afghanistan, right? There were 1 million people who died within a matter of days when Gorbachev attacked, Afghanistan, right? When we tried to move people around, but
they bombed Herat to the ground.
They bombed Herat to the ground, that was they completely wiped out a city. That's what the USSR and the communists did. But even beyond the violence and the killings that the communists did, just the economic policy, the victims to that was even higher than the war. And they managed to break Afghanistan to a point where it's unhealable. It wasn't here's some damage and now you could heal. They completely destroyed the roots, the very foundations of how the country operated. And in that, once they left in that vacuum, Islamism grew. But originally it wasn't Islamism. Islamism wasn't even, there was basically 3 competing ideologies at some point in Afghanistan, right? Capitalism and liberalism that came from America, and through the education system, communism which came from USSR through the military, and Islamism which came from Egypt through the mullahs and the mosques.
Yes. Okay?
Yeah. And this third one was actually the weakest one. This one was the least popular one among all of them, but eventually it won out because, when USSR won,
it was the last one standing.
That was the last one standing, exactly. Anyways, we should answer Qasim and Marcy's questions as well because they're.
Yeah, go for it if you see it. I'm not that far down. Mars is saying, is the idea of nation building in Afghanistan absurd without Enlightenment ideas having taken hold? Can they ever really spread in a region so taken with fundamentalist Islam? Is there a point to book? I don't know if I should say that second word, but I'm going to say flooding an area with books and knowledge Ideas Beyond Borders does. So I know that Ideas Beyond Borders is really going to focus a lot of resources on Afghanistan soon. They just, their founder Faisal just had a big piece in the New York Post about this. So I think that's a really awesome effort. This actually interesting. This question ties into conversations that Armin and I have been having behind the scenes, which is basically, what do you do if a country isn't ready for democracy? We were kind of tackling with this idea of some places just aren't ready for democracy. And I think this is one of those examples. Is the idea of nation building in Afghanistan absurd without Enlightenment ideas? I mean, even with or without Enlightenment ideas, it just feels absurd in general. It's never been united in its entire history. But
there was a time.
I'm kind of tackling with. Sorry, what?
There was a time that it seemed like it was united. When the king stepped down, and it was brief period. I'm going to give my powers away. It was a brief period. But
I kind of expressed what I already need to. Maybe I'm just because of it. It's been a horrible, recently, but just kind of like, I don't even think we're ready for Enlightenment ideas yet.
Okay, so even based on ignoring world history and just focusing on Afghan history, you could see the time where liberalism seems to be like on the up, and economy was growing. It seemed Afghanistan was going to build itself. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are very few simple principles that if your country is run by, you don't need an active up-down nation building from a foreign government to make things work, right? If you have some level of freedom in your economy, right? Let capitalism do its thing with some level of safety net and some level of regulation, but not so much that it's going to cripple trade and entrepreneurship and competition. And if you have some freedom of ideas, okay, and you have secularism and democracy, if you just have those things, just investment and money is going to pour in, and once it does, in your country is just going to do its thing. It will just build itself by that point, right? And you see this everywhere, right? And it is our job as activists to promote Enlightenment ideas, right? It's not the job of any government to do that. If the government just provides freedom of expression and let people just compete with each other on ideas themselves, the best ideas that work will just win, just because they work, right? Usually when bad ideas win is because other ideas do not get to compete in a fair environment, right? So I don't think, like, when you say like, oh, just like without Enlightenment ideas, again, that's Enlightenment ideas needs to grow from the bottom up. When it comes to any form of policy, just provide access to education and provide the opportunity for people to compete, have their ideas compete against each other. Those are the things you need. When the role of government is to just make sure people who need education have access to education, right? That's the role of the government. Everything else, it just has to happen organically, okay? The roles of other governments is to strategically partner up with, like Afghanistan, strategically with the permission of the government and the desire of their own people. Other than if it is obviously within the strategic interest, economic and strategic interest of the country who's providing that, right? But other than that, you can't just like, hey, we're here to build your nation. It doesn't work like that, right? You need to let it organically happen on its own.
Yeah, but Mars, like a precondition of organizations like Ideas Beyond Borders doing the work that they do is literacy. So we need to build up the basic literacy, and then through a lot of different means, and IBB is doing great work to make sure that there is information available to people in their native language, right? Because that's the other piece. Not only do they have to be literate, but the kind of ideas that we want to promote as helping to make sure that humanity prospers. We have to also make sure that information is available to them in a language that they are literate in. But like I just highlighted, there's a lot of steps that have to come before then. So
I'm actually optimistic though about the future. I know it's hard to be optimistic right now. I think Reza is saying education is the solution to 90% of humanity's problems. I mean, I don't know if it's 99%, but I do think it seems like
it's a lot.
I think it's a lot of people think it's cliche to just say like, well, we just need education, but it's kind of true. And the reason why I'm optimistic is because I think the access to information in the next couple of decades is going to be so cheap and so available to the poorest people. Self-education is going to become so much cheaper and so much easier, and the barriers to knowledge and information is going to drop so significantly. and I can't even imagine the positive, the effects of that, like with satellite internet, with Starlink, and then the cost of that dropping and stuff like that. I can't even imagine the
domino effect.
return on the domino effect and the return on investment that we're going to get from that. I'm actually I know it doesn't seem, the world seems like people keep seeing bad things in the news, and it's hard to be optimistic, but I'm actually very optimistic.
No, that's very true. Like, smartphone technology is going to be huge, but again, a prerequisite is literacy.
No, but that will bring literacy. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, that as well.
That will, yeah. Anyways. All right, next question. Wait, how long do you want to go? Shoes, how much longer do you want to go?
How about like another 15 minutes, since we took like about 20 minutes to do our little video in the beginning.
Okay, good.
That's fair. MAGA Hat Atheist is saying, with the Taliban victory and thus strengthening in their alliance with the CCP, do you think there will be renewed attacks on U.S. soil and other Western nations next year? Well,
that's very specific.
Yeah, I don't
know what the CCP has to do with this.
How would that influence on soil attacks? I mean, it'd be a lot harder to get to the U.S., first of all. Other Western nations, it's more probable because of, the land. We're separated by an ocean, so that's one thing.
Yeah, but that didn't stop Bin Laden. No, okay, so here's...
But it's about likelihood, right? Or possibility.
Yes. So what is going to make it more difficult is the better intelligence. Again, first of all, your question is extremely specific. Next year, it might happen this year, it might happen next year, or it might happen the year after that. Okay. So, but I don't understand what the CCP got to do with this, because it's within the CCP's interest for an attack like that not to happen. Because the CCP, for example, let's say the next president of the United States is a Republican who maybe would be interested in showing some strength, or, for example, going to war. And if there's an attack, that will be its excuse for maybe going into Afghanistan. And maybe the CCP wouldn't like that, because the CCP, let's say by next year, again, I don't know, but let's say the CCP, the Chinese government, by next year has like a much tighter and closer relationship with Afghanistan, so much so that it's almost like the relationship we have with Pakistan, and the Belt and Road Initiative is now going through Afghanistan, and now Afghanistan has a lot of contracts when it comes to a lot of the mining sites in Afghanistan, and like all those contracts have been signed, and now they're under operation and everything. Like they're about to get started or something, like or they'll be planning to get started in 5 years or something. And now there's an attack on U.S. soil, and now U.S. is like, oh, we're coming back to Afghanistan, and like CCP is like, wait, what now? Like all of a sudden, all those contracts.
Yeah, stability is in their interest.
Yeah, CCP wants stability. Like, I'm not saying that's as a, I'm not trying to. This is not an endorsement of CCP, because their version of stability is absolute authoritarianism, right? But they only like chaos when things is not in their hand. Like if America is holding a place, they're like, oh yeah, that's under your territory, I hope there's chaos. But now that it's not yours and it's ours, they prefer stability. Wait, are you holding still? Or are you actually? Oh, you're holding so still that I thought you were frozen. So I don't know what this has got to do with the CCP, because the CCP would not be interested in any attack on U.S. soil, and they would, if they have any influence, they would try to stop that. The CCP is hoping that the Taliban crushes down ISIS and Al Qaeda and all those other groups. Like the CCP is like hoping that Taliban could bring stability to Afghanistan. I'm not saying it's going to happen or not, but that would be the best. It would be the best interest of CCP for the Taliban to be able to bring complete stability, and any groups that might be wanting to attack America they're hoping that the Taliban manages to crush them and stop them. The Taliban, it's also within the best interest of the Taliban to not let that Afghanistan become a safe haven for those groups of people, because they don't like last time that a group from Afghanistan attacked the United States, they were like, they lost 20 years worth of ruling Afghanistan. Like, they don't want that to happen again. Like, they're like, okay, we're not. So again, I'm not saying you're going to be successful at it. And again, there's one Taliban is different from another Taliban. One Taliban is like, well, let's attack ISIS. Another Taliban is like, oh, I'm actually working with ISIS, right? So, it's not always going to be consistent. But it's not as simple as you're making it out to be, right? And also, when it comes to predictions like this, here's the thing. There are some people who are going to predict that next year there will be an attack and it's going to come out from Afghanistan, okay? And they have no idea, and they're talking out of their ass. But it might come true, and they're going to seem like they were geniuses, even though you could find somebody with almost any prediction, okay? And some of them are just going to happen to be right. And just by mere accident, they're going to seem like they knew what they were talking about, even though these things are unpredictable. All right, the number of factors are way too high. Like, we have been told, okay, that United States intelligence capabilities, when it comes to attacks on U.S. soil, has become a lot better to be able to stop them with less boots on the ground. Okay, that has been something that has been said by many different people. Okay, how true is that? We don't know how true that is, right? Do you have access to confidential information that the rest of us don't? Because then you may know something that we don't. But it's hard to know how true that is with the level of information that we have access to. Okay, so I don't that's why these things are almost unpredictable. Yeah. Look, it's not just me. People are saying Susanna froze again, but you weren't frozen. Qasim was like, no, she didn't. You were just very, very still. I was like,
I do this to you all the time too. Like, this isn't new.
Is Susanna still with
Susie?
us? Susie, are you there?
All
right.
Here's a fun little question. Vasudev, what do you think is the most important thing needed to have an ultra-utopian society? Well, Vasu, I would like to interrogate, why is it good to have an ultra-utopian society?
What do you mean? Now, what do you mean? That's it's by the definition a good society.
No. Utopianism and idealism is like one of the most dangerous forms of or flavors an ideology can have.
Okay. Thinking that is possible is dangerous, okay? But
yeah, it's horrible.
But if it was possible, the ultra-utopian society by itself cannot be bad, because by definition it's good. That's the definition of it. So it itself is not bad. The idea that it's possible to get that might be dangerous. But the society by itself, if it was possible, it's not a bad thing. It's the definition.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, okay. All right, so why is it dangerous, though, you're saying?
Well, idealism and utopianism is extremely dangerous because it is basically eliminating the human aspect that is our reality. Like, it is expecting and demanding humans within a society to be things that it is just impossible for them to be. It is almost always coupled with an ends justify the means mentality, which is extremely destructive and dangerous.
So let's come up with an example, okay? This is not an example this is just an example to try to tell you what you mean. This is not an argument to say why this is true, okay? Because if it was an argument for why this is true, then it would be the false analogy. It would be a false analogy and it wouldn't be a good argument. So just take this as an example for what we're trying to say, right? Imagine if you were looking at a model, okay, with that was really, really shredded and had like 6-pack abs and really big muscles and seemed to be, like under 6% body fat, right? But still,
this is very specific.
Okay. Yeah, so like something very unrealistic for most people to attain, like something extremely unrealistic, under 6% body fat. Okay, and you're like, that's what I want to get to. Okay, and it's almost impossible for most people. Okay, especially for people that have other things to do, like they have a job and they have like this is not their profession to just be a model and just work out all the time and watch the diet, and you don't have the genetics for that, and you don't have the time for that, and you don't have the life that is possible for you to do other things and also aim for that. Like, it's completely unrealistic. Okay, and you're like, I want to be that. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, so you might end up doing some things because you keep trying things and you're not going to get there, and you have this dream that is impossible. So you're going to do some things that are very dangerous. Like, let's say you're going to go on diets that are very, very extreme. Let's say you're going to cut out food groups that you're going to miss out on nutrition that is important for your health. But like, you know what? I'm going to have to cut my body fat to that level. So I'm going to do this. This is what's needed. So you're going to hurt your body because of you have this unrealistic expectation of your body. You're going to over exercise. Let's say you're going to go on, I don't know, like every day you're going to do a marathon. And you're going to you're not going to have recovery for your body. You're doing cardio and weights every day. You don't understand how important sleep is, how important rest is. You don't understand how anxiety is like destroying the stress from all of that. And the cortisol and the exhaustion from all of that is actually killing you from the inside. So because of this extreme goal that you have, and you also want it by next year, like something maybe that this person achieved in over like 20 years, you want to achieve that, by next summer, I want to look like that, right? So that's gonna be very, very unhealthy. In fact, that person that even looks very good, like under 6% body fat, like he looks very good, but that's actually not the most healthy way to be, right? That person that looks very good might be the 6%. It might look ideal, but he's hungry all the time. He's always has low energy. He can't get it up. There's going to be a whole bunch of issues with like having under 6% body fat, right? So that's what is with society. Like, you think like instead like the best way to run a society to improve a society is like, okay, we have this problem here. How could we improve this? What are the policies and strategies that we could improve education by this much? Not like, this is the utopian model. We have to like look at this like this is like a shining city on a hill, and that's why we want to be like, this is how the most, like, if that's your goal, if you have this unrealistic goal that you're never going to be able to achieve, because how much you are attached to that, you might think like any cost into getting to that goal is worth it. Like the means, the end justifies the mean. And the reason why Susie, for example, is sensitive to this is because a lot of people who had goals like this have committed some of the worst crimes and some of the most biggest human rights violations, because they had this image of how perfect a society could be and how much people would benefit under a society like that they thought the cost, that like if they're hurting people in the meantime, given what they think is possible at the end, the cost in the short term is justifiable. And that's why thinking about utopian models and being so attracted to that possibility of that has been very dangerous many times, because the possibility of it has been so attractive that any cost seems to be justifiable at the point. But instead of looking at that, like just like as an individual, you're like, instead of comparing myself to this model that I probably will never be able to achieve, I'm going to compare myself to yesterday. Myself, right? I used to be able to run for 10 minutes. Today I ran for 11 minutes nonstop. I used to run for 10 minutes nonstop. Now, like, yes, that person seems to be able to run for 5 hours nonstop at speeds that seems inhuman. Forget that guy. I used to be able to run for 10 minutes nonstop. Now I run 11 minutes nonstop. What did I do that I made this improvement? Let's see if I could continue this improvement, right? Same thing with a society, right? You could be like, okay, these, look at our education. it seems like based on our experience, if we like cut costs here and add costs here, it seems like we're going to have higher passing rate at this level. But the other, like these are like, you have to come up with surgical solutions based on statistics and make incremental improvement rather than having this idealistic end in mind. Just keep making improvements based on the data that you have. Are you frozen? I think this time she's frozen. There's no way she's going to keep smiling like that. This is a legit this is the legit freezing. We can't even tell anymore. She might be actually smiling like that nonstop. Okay, so no, that was like wait, we have two Susies. Look at it. Oh no, it's not. Okay.
Wait, this is so funny.
You were actually frozen. Yeah, go ahead.
Blank Name is saying, okay, this rant is about Armin's fantasy. True. a good real world example of this, because I'm like, this is a very protracted metaphor, is basically, I think, of just like communism and anarchism. I think they are like amazing ideas, completely impractical, that don't actually take into account the fact that human beings are as messed up as we are, and we will always be this way. There will always be antisocial people who are not good for the prosperity of the rest of society. That's going to always be the case. So pretending,
as long as we're human.
Yeah, exactly. And pretending like it's purely due to material conditions and we can just like work our way out of that. A lot of that would be helped. I'm not going to pretend like it wouldn't be, but it will still always be there. So we need to find ways to tackle that as a society, which is side note, like one reason why I think complete prison abolition is a ludicrous, dangerous idea. Yes, transhumanism. Yeah, everyone's like, I already know what Armin's thinking. But yes, my internet is starting to poop out right now, so I think that's a good time for us to close it up for the night.
Yes, thank you everybody for your questions. Very interesting today. We had a lot of fun. Yeah, cool. Look, the community here, they know me so much. As soon as actually,
as long as we're human.
As long as we're human, yeah, exactly. All right, cool. Thank you guys. Make sure you subscribe and like this video. I don't know why a lot of you watch these videos without liking them. It doesn't cost you anything, and like we're spending time here and we're answering your questions and everything. Well, so like the video.
Positive attitude about it.
No. Why are you not like? What you, the person who hasn't liked it? Why haven't you liked it? Like, it helps us. It doesn't cost you anything. Like our video. Thank you. It does.
Subscribe to the newsletter for some sexy glasses art. That's definitely free.
Oh my god! Look at this. Okay, I don't. You know what? I don't need your like. Everybody else like. It's like not gonna. If you're not gonna answer, what? We are like, we've been sitting here answering as many questions as we could. When you want us to answer every question, we'll be here forever. We answered as many of them as we could. Answer the question then. No, you know what? We don't need you. Your like, we don't need, okay? Your specific like, we don't need it, okay? Answer the question. We answered as many of them we could. Like, sorry that we didn't catch every single one of them. In fact, I'm not going to answer your question, and you don't like our video. Other people, please like our video. Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay.